Yeah, it's early, but it's already progress report time for the local high school football teams. We're handing out the grades. We will start where we should start, with the defending Moore League champions, Long Beach Poly.
I gave Poly a B here. I think some people would have liked to have seen that lower. Some people would have liked to have seen it higher. My thing is this. They definitely have what I would call probably the most disappointing loss of the non-league schedule for the local teams was their loss to Los Al. But they also have far and away the best win with an impressive 26-3 win over Narbonne when Narbonne was ranked number 12 in the state. So obviously no one else has beaten anyone that's even close to the top 15 in the state. That's a big deal to do that. But if they were 2-2, I don't think they would have thought that they would have lost to the teams they lost to. So you definitely can't give them an A either, and I think a B is about the right level.
Millikan is our first A of the progress report. Millikan's getting an A- because I don't think we've really seen the real Millikan Rams yet. They have the most all-Moore League returners coming back outside of Poly, and yet injuries have hampered them. Obviously, their big receiver, Malik Radford, Cal commit, has been out with a hamstring. Senior running back, Kuwan Campbell's been out with his shoulder, and they've really played 3 completely different games. The defensive battle with Carson in the season opener was 7-3. Then they go to Gar, and they hold on while getting banged up for a win there. And then they come home, and a really messy performance in their home opener against Aquinas gives them their first loss. So they should have an A. But because they haven't had their full complement of players, specifically on offense, and really had a tough week going into the Moore League, I'm giving them the A-. However, they're coming off the bye. So not only do they have a chance to get healthy, not only do they have a chance to kind of reevaluate themselves after playing 3 games, they start the Moore League with what is their biggest game in the Moore League on paper. It's the Poly game. So you kind of get the Poly game out of the way if you're a Millikan Ram, because as we know, the Poly game doesn't really define the 2nd or 3rd or 4th place team in the Moore League. It's those other games. So to kind of get that out of the way, come into it healthy, feel good no matter what coming out, I think is the priority for Millikan, because I think Millikan is leading the chase pack in the league right now.
There is only one undefeated team in the Moore League, and it's not the team that you might expect if you're a longtime follower of that league. The Compton football program, 3-0. They do have one more non-league game against Gardena this week, but right now Compton, the last team with a donut on the second half of that standings, and you really just have to take your hat off. I gave them an A. Was it an A or an A+? But they definitely get an A.
It's an A+.
I mean, what else can you say about a program that has not started 3-0 in a decade and has been able to do that this year? They won the Hub City Championship by beating Compton Centennial and Dominguez, their crosstown rivals.
By a lot.
By a lot. They have been absolutely steamrolling teams. They ran for almost 450 yards against Dominguez. And to me, this is the team I'm most excited to see how they do in league, because if they can get into the playoffs, they'd have to finish top 3 to do that. They definitely have the system and the horses to make some noise in the playoffs. And this is a team we've never seen win a playoff game.
Going to be hard for Calvin Bryant to not win Moore League Football Coach of the Year this year. Somebody prove us wrong. Has Cabrillo, Jordan, and Compton ever won non-league football games on the same night?
I don't even think it's non-league.
In the history.
I don't think they have ever all won a football game, period, league or non-league. Because if you think of the teams that they were playing, there was never a night in league where they beat Millikan, Lakewood, Poly, Wilson.
Nope.
It's never happened.
And
when all 3 of those teams won on the same night.
This Jordan team's coming off a winless season, so you could just knock those seasons out as well, the ones that were winless. But look at them. Somebody break up the Jordan Panthers, man, having their best season in a decade, thanks to a strong defensive leader and really a surprise dual-threat quarterback in Anthony Scott. The junior has become the signal caller at Jordan because of an injury, but he's also leading the defense in tackles, and it's incredible what he's been able to do and what Tim Wedlow's been able to do in his first year over there at Jordan. Yeah, they haven't played the top competition, but I'm giving them an A, because right now the Jordan Panthers are 3-1, and they're trying to change the culture over there, and they came off a winless season. From where their expectations are to where their position is going into the Moore League, I mean, they got a game against Lakewood that could really, really put them on the map on Friday night.
I'm excited about that one, and like you said, it's just so great to see a guy like Scott playing with the pride that he is and trying to change the narrative about his school. Over there on the west side, head coach Mike Ulafale's Cabrillo Jaguars are getting a C+. They started the season off struggling with losses to Bellflower Summit and San Pedro, where they're outscored by a combined 110-33. But they come back, they beat Compton Centennial 33-0. Impressive, yeah, maybe Compton Centennial, obviously not the toughest competition in the world, but they didn't just beat them, they shut them out, and I think showed that they've got a defense that can absolutely make some noise in the Moore League. They also showed off that they have a senior who's a special kid who should be getting some scholarship looks in Feso Kauwili, who had a 95-yard interception return for a touchdown to seal that game, as well as 2 other TD runs.
You tell me 2 weeks ago that I would give the Wilson Bruins a B this week. I call you a liar, because they did not look good in their first 2 games against Mayfair and San Dimas. However, that game against Huntington Beach, a big 10-7 win where their defense kind of got right, and then their offense was able to get right in a 52-14 win over St. Anthony. So all of a sudden, the Bruins have a win over a ranked team in their division. They're 2-2. They're relatively healthy, and fourth-year head coach Mark Ziegenhagen knows how to win in the Moore League. So the Bruins have got a B, and I think they're headed in the right direction. I mentioned that the offense got going. Quarterback Zach Petway has improved mightily. I mean, this kid was a sophomore starter last year, so he's just still in his junior season, and you can see week to week how much more comfortable he's getting, finally finding his big target, Zach Dolphin, last week for a huge night. Petway averaging almost 200 yards passing per game now with 6 touchdowns, just 1 interception.
Lakewood is getting an incomplete on their report card. That might seem like a little bit of a cop-out, but to be honest with you, I just don't think there was another option. Lakewood is 0-3 with losses to teams that, frankly, were just kind of over their head. They go to Florida, they play a Windermere Prep team that Ray Lewis's son was playing for just last year. They play Mayfair, a CIF championship contender, and then Corona Del Mar, also a lower division CIF championship contender. Those are just programs that are a little bit more packed with talent than Lakewood is right now. Lakewood's in rebuilding mode, and head coach Mike Christensen has the philosophy of let's schedule over our head for non-league, because all these games are trying to do is get us ready for league play. That's how we're going to get into the playoffs. And frankly, we're not going to be able to grade them on that strategy until we see how they look this week against Jordan.
Outside of Poly, Lakewood could make a playoff run and get to the championship game and not see 3 straight teams as good as Windermere Prep, Mayfair, and Corona Del Mar. I think an incomplete is a totally fair grade to give this team, but I still can't wait to see some Brasher Kronberger in the Moore League, man. If you saw our highlights last year, you know what I'm talking about.
It's been a rough start to the season for St. Anthony, which is coming in with a C-. The Saints are winless at 0-4 and have been outscored 153-54. But, sort of as we mentioned with some of the other teams, the Saints have been bit maybe worse than anybody else by the injury bug, and it's really been hampering them this season, obviously. They have shown some flashes. They were 1 missed field goal away from beating Palm Springs, falling 28-26. Because they play in a very small league, the Delray League, the Saints actually have 2 more home games that are non-league contests against Gar and Agura before they open Delray League in 3 weeks against Harvard Westlake. So, the main focus for the Saints, we got 2 weeks to get healthy.
Last but certainly not least, the Avalon Lancers are back. Coming off of one of their worst campaigns in the last few years, their 8-man season is starting 2-0, and they got a huge win on the road in overtime against Rolling Hills Prep last week, probably their number 1 competition in their league. Senior Jason Campos leads Avalon with 153 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns in just those 2 games, as 5 different players have over 68 yards on the ground, a balanced attack. Meanwhile, on defense, maybe one of the best players in the 8-man football world, senior Cristobal Hernandez leads the nation with 8.5 sacks in just 2 games. That is just a cool denotation for a kid that lives on a little island off the coast of Long Beach. Avalon plays 4 of its final 7 games at home on the island.
Looking at the football schedule this week, lots to be excited about. Avalon visiting Brethren Christian Saturday at noon. Cabrillo is traveling to Wilson for their Moore League opener, while Lakewood visits Jordan. Compton is going to host Gardena in their non-league finale. St. Anthony hosting Gar, and on Saturday, LBCC will be hosting LA Valley at 5 p.m. at Vets. But the game that we're excited about, the game of all games, not quite to a Moore League Super Bowl, but maybe a Moore League AFC Championship game, Poly hosting Millikan at Vets.
We're only going to be at 1 game. You can only be at 1 game. So if you want to find the scores from the other games, you got to follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, our live update story at the562.org, and hit us up. If you're at one of those other games, if you're at Wilson, if you're at Jordan, let us know what the score of those games is just at us, and we can all be talking about what's going on in the Moore League together.
And JJ mentioned the 562.org will have a live updates page every Friday night this season. We've done one so far every week. We will continue to do that till the end of the year. If you don't have a Twitter, maybe you don't even have a Facebook, if you still want to follow along with the games, you can just by going to the live updates. All you need is a phone or a computer or anything you can look at a website with. We will still keep you up to date on all the scores at the 562.org.